welcome to Aaron Plays. This is episode 8 of my playthrough analysis thoughts on Nemesis, Burma 1944 by Legion War Games, game designed by Kim Ganger. In the last episode we saw the Japanese draw their reinforcements chit, which is their last chit, and we know that the Allied reinforcement chit is also coming up as it's their last chit. We also know that those will not be their first chits for turn 2, because you can't have two of the same chit in a row, even over different turns. So with that in mind, we'll go through the Japanese reinforcement procedure in this episode, and then we'll go through the Allied reinforcement procedure, which is a little bit more involved. Even though the chit says reinforcements, it's actually reinforcements and replacements. And there's a step-by-step procedure to go through with this. So the first up is Japanese replacements. And these are, they can bring back up to 5 battalions from the replacement, as replacements, from the Japanese lost box. Currently there are exactly 5 battalions in the Japanese lost box, so they're all coming back. So all the losses that the Allies have inflicted so far, they're all coming back. That's on this turn through to turn 5 that will occur. The light monsoon actually starts on turn 5, so up to turn 4. So for the first 4 turns, the Japanese will get 5 replacements as battalions. The light monsoon lasts from turn 5 to turn 7, and then they only get 3 of those battalions back, and then from turns 8 through to the end, which is turn 10, they only get 1. So as the weather decreases or degrades, the replacement rate of the Japanese degrades too. There are a few other little caveats. No more than 2 battalions from the same division were taken. Well, at the present moment there's no more than 2 from any division. We've got 2 from the Green Division, which is the 31st, 2 from the Orange Division, which is the 15th, and 2 from the, what colour is that? Brown, which is, I believe, the 33rd? 33rd, yes. So that they don't break that requirement. Now, where can they place these? Either on a unit or transporter from the same division that is within supply range of its divisional HQ, and which may not be out of supply itself. Or a Japanese supply depot that is Japanese controlled and able to provide some sort of supply that is within 5 hexes of its divisional HQ. So with that in mind, we look at these 2 first. They can be placed, first one, on a unit or transporter from the same division. Okay, so most of their division is here, 4, 8. Now they're at stacking limit. However, I think these regiments can absorb those battalions. I think it's instantaneous. Okay, I've just checked through the rules and it doesn't seem to be a way they can do that, because it's done at the end of any phase that battalions are merged into their subsequent regiments, and it would be therefore at the end of the reinforcement phase. So putting those battalions on there would actually therefore now exceed the stacking. Slightly bonkers, I know, but I suppose it stops units instantly getting back up to full strength. But if there had been placed a stack in there, well, they've done so. So they can't go back into the full front line. The next place they could go is back with this unit here, which can, there's 2 regiments there, so they can go into that hex there, which they will do so. Could they have been moved any further forward? Japanese supply depot, the nearest Japanese supply depot is there, so no, that's probably the best place for those 2 units. Okay, the brown one from the 33rd, that could go on here. I've got to be careful with my camera angles on here, because again I get carried away and I'm not sure what I'm actually looking through the camera. I'm just doing movement on the board. So there we go. So it could go in here, or here, as I just said, here, here. That's probably overstacked. There's 2. Yeah, that'll overstack. So we'll put him in with there. Okay, and that then leaves the 2 green units, which are right up the northern side of the board there. And we'll stick one here and bring that up to full strength, and we'll stick one over here, again in supply, within range of their HQ, etc, etc. So that's the Japanese first part of their reinforcement phase completed. The only other little thing I'd like to add on there is during effectively some of the reinforcements turns, so is it one in 8 next turn, there's a little red dot which is next to the turn number. On those turns you can replace, the Japanese player can replace a single one of those regiments for a support unit, so allowing them to bring back some of their artillery if they ever lose any. So that's part A of the reinforcement phase. Next up is the actual reinforcements themselves. So looking at the turn track, there's quite a lot of units coming in, but not for the Japanese. Most of them are for the Allies. There are 2 full independent regiments for the Japanese. These 2 units. Take note that they've actually got the turn number on them, turn 1, whereas I say all the other units have their setup hexes. So quite a lot of Allies, I actually might as well show that the Allies are getting this amount of units, but not all of them are going to come on the board, which we'll discuss in the Allied reinforcement phase. Now, these enter on a Japanese reinforcement hex, which are the same hexes we looked at for their supply, which are these with the cream border, and there are a total of 4 of these along the map edge. So they can enter on any one of those. Okay, and then they can move by rail. Now, the rail line is this red line that goes all the way up to around about here. Oh, it was off camera again. Okay, around about here, this rail line. However, there's a darn chindit sitting in the way, so they could probably move by rail to, I think you can move adjacent to here or here. And there's also a little bit of a rail line at La Show, which I'll bring the camera over to show, which is here. And that's as far as the rail goes. But from there, all the rail lines interlink off board. So where it comes off board here, and where I just showed you, they are linked. So it says that all Japanese units except garrisons that either occupy the reinforcement hex or so, or a railway hex. They can trace a route of contact, whatever that is, because it's got it in brackets, along the railway, either with a supply entry hex or with Michikina. Now, where is Michikina? That's right at the top of the board. Okay. May move along the railway to another railway hex. Any rail movement or route of contact, again, whatever that means, may not enter an enemy-occupied hex or an enemy-controlled objective. So they can move adjacent. And that's moved in this phase here. So I'm going to bring those in here, and I'm going to want these to engage those Chindits at some point. So I'm going to move it all by rail. I'm not going to make choo-choo sounds. Oh, would that get me a few more likes? Choo-choo, choo. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. How sad. They're going to move to here. Okay. So that is the Japanese reinforcements. That's it. All done. Dusted. Now on to the Allied reinforcement kit, which I've drawn out the cup. Well, it's the only thing that's in there. And this is where it gets a little bit more tricky. Okay. So, Allied replacements. So it goes for the same sort of thing, but it's Allied replacements. It says, the Allied player may return 2 British and or Stilwell units, regardless of size, from the Allied losses box. Okay, well there are a couple of units in there. And place them full strength in the Allied of map box. So, this is where I'm going to go up to the top of the map there. Okay. Alright, so these are the Allied losses. And this is the Allied off-map box. So I can return 2 British and or Stilwell units, regardless of size, from the Allied losses box and place them full strength in the Allied off-map box. Okay. During heavy monsoons, only 1 unit may return. No unit from the permanent losses. Well, no unit's been permanent lost so far. So those 2 return or go into there. Yes, oh dear, I'm making them neat and then I'll knock everything else flying. Okay, that's where they go and sit. So they don't come back onto the map just like the Japanese do. They've got to go into an off-map box. Okay. Support units may only be chosen during the support game turns. Oh, so can't take that one because that's a support unit. So that's got to wait until the support turn, which is turn 2. Okay. The Allied player may return on a support game turn a single support unit. In addition, the Yunnan artillery unit, okay, Yunnan, well, we haven't taken any Yunnan losses. One eliminated Yunnan force unit is in addition to that, may be returned each game turn to the Allied off-map box. Well, as I say, there are no Yunnan losses as such. And Yunnan is all these forces along here. Chinese, which did nothing this turn. They weren't activated. Okay, so still looking at those boxes. Now, this is an option. Instead of moving 1 unit from the losses box, the Allied player may deduct 1 resource point and flip up to 2 Allied units, any mix of British and Stilwell units, into full strength. Now, resource points. What are resource points? Resource points is something I have been forgetting to keep track of and haven't mentioned at all until this point. The Allied resource point is that little white marker right at the top of the map there. Okay, I wonder if this will help. Oh, right at the top of that pointer is. Can you see that? Yeah. Okay, now that should have been increasing every time the Allies take a loss, or the Japanese take an objective. It's like the Allies putting more effort in, the better the Japanese are doing. So as I say, I haven't been keeping track of it so far, but we can now go back and see how many resource points the Allies would be able to have, because this is one of the few times they can spend them. So let's go through them in a little bit of detail. So the Allied resource marker indicates the number of resource points the Allied player can use, mainly to move units from the Allied off-map box into play. Advance the marker one slot for each Allied unit, regardless of type, size or quality, that is placed in either of the Allied losses box, either permanent or the non-permanent. There is an exception to that, as all rules love exceptions. Do not move the marker when a Yunnan force is eliminated, or when a Chindit battalion is returned to its box. So I've lost 2 Allied units, so that would have been 2 resource points straight off. Okay, then 1 slot when the Japanese player achieves control of an objective. Well, so far I've placed on the board 1, 2, 3 objective markers. If I just bring those over, that's where those Japanese flags are. So 1 over here, 1 here, and 1 up there. So that's 3 plus it. So that puts the Allied resource marker on to 5, which also means then I've got to get off my butt to actually move the marker. So excuse me. And this marker can go all the way up to 9 and no further. Okay. So it also moves up a number of slots at the end of game turn sequence. When we go through the end game turn sequence, we'll see how much it moves beyond that. So that's how we gain resources. Now in the supply phase, this is how we spend, not the supply, the reinforcement phase and replacement phase, this is how we spend them. So as it said, under the replacements, instead of moving 1 unit from the losses box, the Allied player may deduct 1 resource point and flip up to 2 Allied units, any mix of British and Stilwell units, into full strength. So instead of moving that regiment from there to there, I could instead flip 2 units on the board back up to full strength. No more than 2 units may be flipped during a phase. Support units and non-replaceable units may not be chosen. Each unit must be within range of either a friendly HQ or a supply depot. That's interesting. So that gives me a decision. So instead of moving 1 unit from the losses box, the Allied player deduct 1 resource and flip up to 2 Allied units up to full strength. I think I might do that. So let's put that back there. So this is why I say it's a little bit trickier. You've got actual real decisions to make. So we won't do that. Have to get up again. That resource marker moves down to 4 to there, and then we will do 2 Allied units, and one of them will be this guy here. What is that? That's just a parachute brigade, and I think yeah, 1 unit from the 17th Division, trying to get out of Tidham. Well, they're out of Tidham now, trying to get their way back to Impala. Okay. So that's the replacement phase for the Allies. Allied reinforcements. So there are steps to go through in this one. So as I said, that there is quite a few Allied units coming in this turn. Let me just bring the camera down. As you can see, there are 2 US engineers, a couple of Chindits, 3 Chindit units, 2 other brigades from the 5th Division, and 3 Chinese regiments. Okay. So initially all these units go to the Allied off-map box. So I'm going to put them in 3 little piles. No, actually 4. At the top of the map there. There they are, all sitting nice and pretty. Okay. Move all Yunnan forces from the Allied off-map box and place them in a full supply. Well, there are no... Well, are those Yunnan forces? I don't think they are. They've got a purple star, so they're not Yunnan forces. So if there were any Yunnan forces, they would all move to a Chinese reinforcement hex. No resources are paid for that. Then, deduct 1 resource point for each unit that is moved from the off-map box either to the map or to an off-map airfield. Any remaining points are saved until later use. You may move only 1 unit to the off-map airfield. See, there's a box here that says off-map airfield. Okay, so I'm assuming, when we'll get to it, that they can actually then fly to somewhere on the board. So you may move only 1 unit to the off-map airfield, and it may not be motorised. You may move 2 units if you refrain from rolling the replenishment die. You may move 2 units, okay, to the off-map box, to the airfield box, okay. A steel force unit that is brought to the map is placed in full supply in the US reinforcement hex, which is right at the top of the map there. Here. So a steel force unit is brought into the map is okay. A British unit is placed in full supply in the British reinforcement hex, which is also near the top of the map. Over. I wonder if I can use my little thingy there, right at the end of where that line is. Okay. Right. A British unit is placed in full supply in the British room. Right. Okay. The other thing they can do is replenish the supply stock at Imphala, but they don't need to do that at the moment because the road hasn't been cut, so it's automatically at full supply. All Allied units and transports that occupy a reinforcement hex may move to any rail hex connected to it. Well, there's not much Allied rail, and the Allied rail lines do not connect off map, whereas the Japanese ones do. So the ones up north in India, again up their area there, they link back to Delhi, I suppose, whereas the one over here links back somewhere in China, and the other one also links somewhere in China but not connected. So those are the choices there. Deduct 1 resource point for each unit that has moved from the off-map box either to the map or to the off-map airfield. Okay. So they've got 4 resource points. It might be worthwhile keeping a few. I'm not sure if this is a good decision, but I'm going to put a Chindit unit into the off-map airfield. Okay, so move on from here to here. I'm going to put these 2 units from the the 5th Division. Okay, I'm going to place those into the Allied supply reinforcement hex, British supply reinforcement hex, and that's 3 units. So that's 3 resources, so it's dropping from 4 to 1. And I'm going to leave the rest. So as you can see, they've got a lot of reinforcements, but they're not able to bring them all in. Whereas the Japanese, they all came on. And I'm not moving any of those by rail. No, I'm quite happy where they are. And that then concludes the Allied reinforcement phase. Which brings us to the end of game turn sequence. So I might as well do this now rather than shoot another video. So at the end of the game turn sequence, first of all, you've got to carry out a couple of steps in the following order. So control. First of all, you determine who controls what. If there's anything that's marked uncontrolled, well, I've been putting the control markers out that have changed, so we're all okay there. Any attrition, I think we went through the supply. Everyone was in supply when we determined it, so there's no attrition at present. Ambush, any ambush markers are removed from the map, so I might as well do, is there any more? They should have a total of 5. So there's one, there we go, there's the other one. So they're removed from the map. Ready for next turn. Then we got to see how happy each of the superiors are. I'm going to make a die roll to try and make them happy. I don't know if this is court, army commander discussions, persuasions, or what it's trying to represent, but this is quite an important phase. So, try to make your superior happy. That's what the actual sequence of plays says it is. You roll a die and compare the result with your general's position on the track. The side with the lowest superior rolls first. So at the present moment, the Japanese superior is in 6, and Churchill is in 5. So it says the side with the lowest superior rolls first. Right. So you're rolling a single dice. If equal, the Allied player rolls first. Okay. If you roll equal to or less than the general's position, then advance your superior 1 slot. So look at Churchill's in 5. I'm going to roll equal to or less than his position. So there's the dice cup. I rolled a 5, rolled equal to or less than his position. So they did. Then advance your superior 1 slot. So they've obviously been persuaded in that they're doing a good job. Hirohito is on 6. If you roll equal to or less than the general's position, well, it's going to be automatically he's going to be happy. So he goes up to 7. Okay. Advance the CLF marker. And the CLF, I think that's the Japanese Chiang Kai-shek marker. If Churchill advances. If you roll higher, then nothing happens. So where they are currently, they'll just continue to rise. End the game immediately if either side has won according to right. Okay. Right, so that's fine. So Chiang Kai-shek goes up to a 2. So he'll be easier to persuade to go on. So that's step A. B, listen to your superior's lament. So we've got to listen to him moan now. Advance your lament marker an equal number of slots to the number of enemy flags on the map. Right, so there are 1, 2, 3 Japanese flags on the map. So the Allied lament goes up by 3. 1, 2, 3. So Churchill's happy, but he has his doubts, and that lament marker's gone up to 9. Then advance your limit marker an extra 3 slots for each objective with a yellow star. Ooh, I don't think any of them had a yellow star. No. No. And no. I can see Impala has a yellow star. Oh, and Kohima. Alright, so there'll be an additional. If your lament goes past 9, your superior goes down a slot. Okay. The Japanese lament doesn't increase because none of there's no allied flag on the map. At that point, you then determine if there's victory. So if you enter game turn 10, which obviously we're not, we're still in turn 1, and neither side has won yet, the game will end where the side with the highest superior is the winner. Okay. If the game did not end due to victory and you have not yet played all 10 turns, then proceed with the following. If Hirohito is higher than Churchill, Hirohito is on 7, Churchill's on 6, so he is. Then the allied player advances the resource marker an equal number to the difference between the two superiors. So the allies get 1 resource because the difference is 1. So the allied resources is back to 2. This is a support game turn, which it isn't. Okay. But if it was, we remove flags in excess of 5. Then we go into continuation, the last step. If you're about to enter the light monsoon, which we're not, remove it, but if we were, we'd remove the Japanese air support from the game. Flip all allied air supports to their weaker monsoon side. But we're not doing that because we've not entered monsoon. Also remove right. Okay. So all air support is returned. Now, that's something else I did quite wrong during this playback. I didn't use the allied air to help in their attacks. I was only looking at that right now. I was like, oh, wait a minute, I haven't used any allied air. Okay. All I can say is, these games, there's a lot to control. The last thing we do is secretly choose. Now, if this was a 2-player game, so yes, I was playing. Suppose each of the players would choose their chit for the first phase of next turn, and it can't be the chit that was chosen last of this turn. However, I'm playing this solo, so I don't want to know what each side is going to do. So I'm going to randomly draw, putting in the three non-reinforcement chits in for the Japanese, and the 3 non-reinforcement chits up for the Allies. I'll put the reinforcement chits in after I've done this draw, and I'm going to draw blind. So I'll give them a good shake, drawing the Allied one blind, put it in there and leaving it upside down, making sure the other ones are upside down in the actual pot, and doing the same for the Japanese, but I'm going to look at it because they are going to be going first in game turn 2, and the Japanese are doing, they probably, if we were playing a 2-player game, they would definitely not have chosen that one. But then again, I suppose it gets it out of the way, but it does mean they lose a little bit of the initiative. So they were doing their supply check for turn 2. The Allied one, I don't know what that is, and I will leave that unknown whilst I play through this turn 2 for the game. I move the turn marker on, and that concludes this video. Thank you for watching with me so far. I hope it's been interesting. I hope this will encourage anyone who's got this sitting on their shelves to give it a go. There's a lot to take in. There's a lot of moving parts, but it's fascinating. You know, it's all fitting on one map. It hasn't got a big footprint. It looks gorgeous. It's not that often this subject is covered in a game. And yeah, there's a lot going on. As you know, my lack of use of the air power. And to chew into for a solo player, especially with those supply chits. So, sorry, not supply, with the chit draw, it does aid solo play. So yes, as I say, I hope if you've joined me, kept with me so far, you'll be interested to see me to go into turn 2. Any comments, as always, much appreciated. If I did do anything wrong, please let me know. It's only by pointing out mistakes that we improve in these games. They are complex beasts, but that's part of the reason why we love them. So, until next time,